background?
So if you recall, the board authorized a month or two ago, I forget when, but to reestablish the planning commission, so we prepared an ordinance to do just that. It takes effect and would create the planning commission starting January. It will be a 5-member planning commission, just like you had in the past, and really what we did is we looked at the ordinance and planning commission regulations you had in the past, and we mimicked those and just recreated it so they could hit the ground running in January.
Need a motion to
Sure.
I have a question. I think we all agree that we need a planning committee, but how is this formed? Does each commissioner recommend somebody to this board, or does it go out to the public for 30 days to see if anybody has an interest?
It'd be the same way as it always has. Bring nominations and you vote on them.
Okay, just want to know.
Any questions? I'll wait for a motion, but any more questions? Okay, then I'll need a motion.
Oh, wait, how are we gonna advertise to bring, I mean, if people are interested, but I don't know them, or you don't know them, how will they know that they can? You're saying we have to bring the nominations
You
in,
have somebody, you can bring a nomination in. Yeah.
but how will people know that they're going to do this? Are we gonna put this on the website?
I didn't put anything out for advertising.
I didn't mean advertisement in papers, I just meant the website, or something like that, or on a Facebook
Same
page.
process we've been doing for the last 7 years. Others? Yeah, I got the motion, a second, right? Need a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Is there a second?
A second.
Further discussion? All in favor say aye. Against? Very good.
Is that 529?
No, that
That's
would be
5:30.
5:30.
530, okay.
Yeah, the numbers changed
All right.
due to the zoning.
Just checking.
Didn't know it was little one.
Okay, we're moving to new business B. This is a solicitation one. So this is what Commissioner Bree brought up, and trying to curtail some of the knocking on the door within the township. And Eric has brought up a proposal here that we can kind of strengthen what we have in the ordinance already, so Eric.
Yeah, so with the chief in our office, we researched what was done around and tried to mimic the best pieces of other ordinances. So essentially, what you already have as a license is required, but now I think we have some more teeth involved in our ordinance. In that, one, we say that anybody who's doing soliciting for a non-exempt purpose, an exempt purpose could be church and things like that. That they would have to get a license prior to doing anything. The other things we've added in here is the township will create an opt-out list, which I'm sure the process isn't in effect yet. We don't know how we're gonna do that, but we will somehow figure out a way for the public to know that they can get their name on an opt-out list, which will then be provided to anyone obtaining a license. The other ways you can opt out, which exists today, is you could put on your property a sign that says no solicitation or no trespassing. So if you do one of those three things, to opt out list or put signage on your property, and somebody with or without a license would show up. If they have a license, what could happen immediately is both their license would be revoked, and as part of the application process, we require that they have to tell you who they're working for. So the license will be revoked also for the company they are working for, so that company couldn't send in a new person the next day, ask for a license, they won't get it either. We have a right to reject that. So it's a teeth that goes one step further than what it did before. But it's immediate revocation. The other thing is the chief can issue fines for people, which is, I think, $600 per occurrence. And also prohibit any other license, being able to obtain a license at any time in the future. So So I think there is a lot of things in here that are good and will help to protect your public and actually give them more of an opportunity rather than putting signage on their property to get on that opt-out list. Did I miss anything, Chief? I think I covered everything.
Questions? So the key to this is going to be, this is going to, we have some bones, we're gonna have to hang the mechanics around this on how to actually do it
Correct.
in an efficient fashion.
And you're right, and I'll tell you, I think the initial push is probably gonna be the problem for the township. The ongoing, maintenance of that list is gonna be fairly simple, but if a lot of people want on all at once, obviously, we're gonna get inundated and that list may take some time to develop.
Okay, I'll need a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
In a second. Further discussions?
Yes, when we, review or revise the permit costs and fees, I think we need to reflect the cost of maintaining that list to the township, because there is gonna be a cost to that. And I would also highly, again, it was already said by Eric, but I'll say it again, putting a sign out, they're not that expensive. I put one out about 2 months ago. I haven't had one person walk down my driveway yet. I was surprised how effective it was. And I would encourage people, if someone does not get your door, and you're not in the do not disturb list, get their business card. Maybe talk to them for a second, and so we can properly report it. And the public's gonna be the key here to reporting these, because the police can't police it without somebody complaining about it. And I hope this slows down, because I know everybody in this room is very wise, but there's a lot of vulnerable people in our township, and I've experienced it, within our family, extended family. They just came in and try to rip people off. But people report if you see it. That'd be great. Thank you.
And the one thing I didn't mention is another requirement of this code as we wrote it is that everybody who gets a license has to have that license on them. So if they show up at your door and you ask for it, they have to show it to you. So at that point, I don't know what'll be on that, but it'll at least have some type of identification that you can report back that they're doing something wrong to the township, and we'll know who they're talking about.
Good. Okay, we had motion in a second. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Against? So carries. New business C, this is the street feedback section. Eric?
So this one is for essentially to protect our newly redone streets. If we have a paving project or we redo a street, what we don't want to happen is a certain amount of time, I think it's 5 years in here, that people would start coming out and digging up the street to put sewer connections, utility connections, and things like that. So what the onus it puts on us is that if we have a project coming up, we will have to reach out to the sewer companies, water companies, whoever's in the streets, to let them know to get their projects done before we do our project. There'll be a timing mechanism for that. It does allow for emergency connections, so obviously if there's a sewer break or a main break, they can get into our street. However, the requirement we would put on them is that, not that they would just patch that little section of street, they would have to do a much larger area so that it is a consistent street. Basically, you're spending millions of dollars on these street projects. We wanna make sure people aren't hitting rumble strips from people digging, or entities or individuals digging up your street right after it's done. So it does provide guidance to the township as to what sections they have to redo if there is an emergency cut in our street after we redo it.
Questions before I ask for a motion? Can I have a motion on this?
I will make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
There's a second. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carries. New business D is dealing with the project management piece of the building project. As we went down this as LO5, I went through the architecture, would move over to project manager at additional fees, which is in their contract. They actually recommended this group to be the project manager of the building project. And to date, they have done a great job of intertwining both LO5 and our engineers, so this group looks like to be the best that, of what our professional service guys have recommended, so. Need a motion to approve this?
I just have a question. I see, their total bill is, $434,990. How'd they come up with that if we don't have a final plan, final drawing?
Well, they have what they have to the extent, and when they went to speak with our engineers in LO5 and calculate with their models what they think it would be and how long it would take. And what he did, instead of doing it by an hourly rate, he's doing it by a cost by month that you see on the right-hand side of that number,
I saw that.
which would be intertwined with the estimated cost that we have for the whole building and come out with what we think is gonna be the total cost of going through this. The big piece is relieves a lot of pressure off anybody else that's trying to be involved in this, and they're also will be on site and take this through to completion. I know, Don, you worked some of this, you have anything else to?
Yeah, I do, and this is the one point of contention that you and I have. I don't think that you need approval for this, because I thought we approved this as part of Resolution 749, where we can contract people. And we realized you were too kind in your words. The architect was gonna manage this project at cost, and we felt that we weren't gonna get the best service. And I know you and I were said, well, we'll try to manage the project to hedge cost, but it's too much for us. And the pitfalls, I wish we were warned of a year ago, because I would've hired these people a year ago. It's not in the best interest of the taxpayers for commissioners to do this unless they're experienced. I have some experience, but nothing this big. But Trace, I think you're already authorized under 749 to get this project done. Obviously, the final approval of the bid award has to be voted on by us, I think, but I think you're already authorized, Trace. And if you just wanna throw this out, just to make sure, it's okay, but I think we don't even need to do this.
Okay, I have a comment then. My first comment is going to be, I don't actually see this as a contract. I see this more as an RFP, so I was a little confused as to why we're voting on a contract. I mean, that's how I read this whole thing. It's a very nice letter. They explain a lot of things. And, I'm feeling that possibly these costs could go up, depending on whatever changes with the plans, the final plan. I don't even know what's being planned yet, but, that you brought up 749, I think we need to remember that 749 only gave permission for the, Evans tract, as it's being called. Because that's what the whole resolution ordinance was about. Do we need to rescind that? That's Eric. I mean, you would be the one to, make that, call. Should we look at that first?
Well, it's not on your agenda, so we can look at it after this evening if you want to. I don't think there's any need to rescind it, however. If it only applies to the Evans tract, it's just gonna go by the wayside. There'll be no reason to rescind it. If it applies to the whole project, regardless where it is, then I think it is appropriate to vote on this evening, even with 749. So.
I kind of read it as it only applies to the Evans tract.
No, I'm not saying, I didn't read that before this evening, so I'd have to go back and look at 749. What I'm saying is, I think it's appropriate to vote on this evening. It is a large enough contract that to protect Trace, the advice I gave is to protect him. I would like to see this voted on to make sure there is a consensus to actually spend this money,
Okay.
regardless of 749.
This is the only one we have though. Are there no others that can submit something so we can compare what we're getting? I understand Alloy 5 likes them and wants to deal with them, cause I saw their building on their website, but, it just seems like we should have maybe a bigger vetting process for at least 2 others. Usually we did that with, civil engineers for, Hollenbach, I know I was part of that. Just, that's my suggestion.
We had a motion,
I don't think so.
I did, this was a contract, and I thought, because of this, I think for visibility, we put it forward. And that's the reason we did put it on there, which I think would be appropriate, although I appreciate on the 749. So I need a motion on this?
I thought we had a motion. I'll make the motion, to approve this. It's not,
I'll check for you too.
Yeah,
So, I know you're doing double duty.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against?
Nay.
Nay.
Motion carries. Also in your packet, you have the scheduling for next year. I think one thing you'll see on there is a little bit different is January. We have, just one meeting and it's all the way to the end of the month to give everybody a little bit more breathing place as we go through the holiday season. Generally everything else the same. We backed up a little bit, make sure we were away from some election days, didn't plot it right on top, and then you see the backup days that are generally the first Monday, and then our regular meetings the third Monday, and then the holidays are on there, so I'll need a motion.
I'll make that motion for 225 here.
2025, is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there a second, is there further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye.